a small city in eastern Ukraine. Before the war, around 70,000 people lived there. Not Kyiv, not Kharkiv, not Mariupol, Bakhmut. And yet, by 2023, this small city became the center of one of the longest and bloodiest battles of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Reuters called it the longest and bloodiest battle of the war up to that point. So the question is simple. Why did both Russia and Ukraine fight so hard for Bakhmut? Was it strategy? Was it symbolism? Was it propaganda? Or was it just a brutal machine of attrition, where both sides kept feeding men into a ruined city because stopping had become politically impossible? The answer is all of the above. To understand Bakhmut, we need to begin with the Donbass. The Donbass is Ukraine's eastern industrial heartland. Coal, factories, railways, mining towns, and Soviet-era military infrastructure. Since 2014, after Russia's first intervention in eastern Ukraine, the Donbass had already been a war zone. When Russia launched its full-scale invasion in February 2022, one of Moscow's stated goals was to seize all of Donetsk and Luhansk. Bakhmut sits in Donetsk Oblast. It was not the biggest city, it was not the richest city, but it sat on useful roads near other important towns and in front of Ukraine's deeper defensive belt. Capturing Bakhmut could give Russian forces a stepping stone toward larger Ukrainian-held cities like Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. Reuters described Bakhmut as a regional transport and logistics hub, useful to Russia if enough infrastructure survived, and potentially a springboard toward those bigger Donbass cities. That is the military map. But the emotional map was different. By late 2022 and early 2023, Bakhmut was no longer just a point on a map. It had become a slogan. Bakhmut holds. For Ukraine, Bakhmut became proof that Russia could be resisted, slowed, bled, and humiliated. For Russia, Bakhmut became desperately needed proof that the war was still producing victories. And this is where Wagner enters the story. The Wagner Group was a Russian private military company, though private is a misleading word. It operated in the shadow of the Russian state, across Ukraine, Syria, and several African countries. Its leader was Yevgeny Prigozhin, a former convict and businessman who rose through catering contracts and political usefulness until he became one of the most notorious figures of the war. In Bakhmut, Wagner became the main assault force. Its method was horrifyingly simple. Repeated infantry assaults, including waves of prison recruits, sent forward against Ukrainian positions. Some were poorly trained. Many were expendable. Their purpose was to expose Ukrainian firing positions, wear down defenders, and advance meter by meter. The White House said in May 2023 that Russia had suffered about 100,000 casualties in the Bakhmut region and other areas over the previous 5 months, including more than 20,000 killed, with many of the dead linked to Wagner and convicts recruited from prisons. Later, Mediazona and BBC Russian investigated Wagner documents and concluded that more than 19,500 Wagner fighters died around Bakhmut, including about 17,000 prisoners. This is why Bakhmut became known as the meat grinder, not because the city was enormous, because the killing was. By early 2023, the battle had turned into something almost First World War-like. Trenches, artillery, drones, ruined buildings, small advances measured in meters. Entire blocks fought over, lost, retaken, destroyed. Russia needed a victory after humiliating setbacks around Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Kherson. Wagner needed a victory to prove its value and increase Prigozhin's power. Ukraine needed to show that Russian advances would come only at unbearable cost. Bakhmut became a test of endurance. For Russia, capturing it would be the first major battlefield success in months. Reuters noted that if Wagner's claim of capture was confirmed, Bakhmut would be Russia's first major capture since July 2022, and a morale boost after a string of defeats. For Ukraine, holding Bakhmut helped sustain morale and Western confidence. It showed that Western support was not being wasted. It showed that Ukraine could hold, even under terrible pressure. Bakhmut did not just damage Russian manpower, it damaged Russian political stability. A battle for a small city helped reveal cracks inside Putin's war machine.